Hello, good afternoon everyone. First of all, let's thank to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for giving us good health and the opportunity to be here today. Now we will continue to this seminar which will present by Hafiz Kurniawan. And the title is Anxiety of Speaking English in English Foreign Language or EFL class. So, without any further ado, let's start. And back to the presenter. Time is yours.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present this article today. The article I present, the title is Anxiety of Speaking English in English Foreign Language or EFL class. This article discusses students' anxiety when speaking English in front of the class. Speaking anxiety is one of the common and the biggest problem faced by EFL students because speaking English is not easy for any learner. Students often feel nervous, feel shy, and afraid of making mistakes or afraid of being judged by their students or teachers. This topic is very important because speaking is one of the main goals in learning English. However, so many students cannot perform because they have anxiety and then it affects their confidence in their performance in speaking English. First is outline. Okay, the first outline is background. First, I will explain the background study and why speaking becomes very hard and often causes anxiety in students. Next is the research objective, literature review, the research method, findings, discussion, conclusion, and in the end is the reference. Okay, let's move to the first point is background. English is important for global communication. English is an international language. It is used for communications around the world. English is important in education, in technology, and even in social communication. Because of this, students are expected to master English in order to compete globally. Speaking is an essential productive skill. Among the four skills of English, speaking is considered the one of the most important productive skills because it leads to speak directly in communications. And also, through speaking, students can share their opinion and their ideas and their feelings or information to other people. Next is many EFL students feel anxious to speak English. However, there are so many students in EFL classroom experience anxiety in speaking in front of the class. Students often feel nervous, feel shy, and feel trembling when they ask to speak in front of the class. Anxiety affects students' confidence and participation. The anxiety students can affect negatively in the classroom activities. Some students prefer to stay silent, and in the end, they cannot improve their ability to speak English. And others avoid eye contact, avoid participation, and become passive students in the class. Students face difficulties in vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar. This article explains that students often face difficulty with vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciations because they do not fully master in English. And in the end, students become afraid when they ask to speak English in front of their class. And as a result, anxiety influences speaking performance. Students might forget what they're gonna say and lose concentrations, and in the end to fail the communication theory. This is why the researcher wanted to investigate the speaking anxiety in the EFL classroom. Okay, we move to the next point is research objective. The first research objective is to investigate the level of students' speaking anxiety. The second is to identify factors causing speaking anxiety. And the last is to explain the impacts of anxiety on speaking performance. The first objective is the researchers wanted to know last research objective is the researchers wanted to understand how anxiety affects students psychologically and physically during speaking English in front of the class. Okay, we move to the next point is literature review. The first is foreign language. The first is foreign language anxiety, feeling of nervousness and fear in language learning, and influence speaking performance. According to Haafizh and other mentioned in article, foreign language anxiety is feeling of nervousness, feeling fear, and feeling worry when they are speaking English in front of the class. This anxiety is closely related to speaking activities because students are required to speak to communicate with their friends in front of the class. Next is main anxiety factors. The first is communication apprehension. The first major factor is communication apprehension. This means students are afraid to communicate with other people using English. Students feel uncomfortable because they think that English is very poor and difficult to understand by other people. Next is test anxiety. The second major factor is test anxiety. This means students feel nervous and afraid during oral tests, during presentations, and during classroom performance because they think or they're afraid getting a bad score. Next is fear of negative evaluations. This means students are afraid that teacher or that classmate will criticize or will not notice their mistakes. The common causes, the first is fear of mistakes. So many students are afraid of making mistakes when about grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciations, and they often make students hesitate or avoid speaking English in front of the class. Next is lack of confidence. This means students usually avoid speaking because they feel insecure and of their speaking ability. Next, or the last, is limited vocabulary. Limited vocabulary becomes another problem because they cannot express what they're gonna say. The last is mispronunciations. Students are also afraid of pronunciations will be not understood by their classmates, so they become worried other people will laugh at them. Okay, we move to next point is research method. For research design is descriptive qualitative case study. The researcher uses descriptive qualitative case study. The researcher choose this because they want to explore the students' feelings and experience in speaking very deep. For the participant is 45 first semester EFL students. The participant of the study is 45 EFL students at STKIP Muhammadiyah Ringsewu Lampung. These students were chosen because they were still adapting to English learning in university level. For the instrument, the first is observation. The researchers observe the students' speaking behavior during classroom activity. The next is questionnaire, is FLCAS. The questionnaire was adapted from Haafizh and used Likert scale. The third is interview. The researchers also conduct the interviews to get more deeper and more understand about students' feelings or experience in speaking in front of the class. For data analysis, the first is data triangulation. This means that the researcher combine the interview, observations, questionnaires, and recording to get more accurate result. The next is coding and interpretations. This means after collecting data, the researcher interpret and analyzes carefully to get the findings. Okay. Next is the findings. The first point is anxiety level. 39 students showed high anxiety. The findings show that 39 students show high anxiety when speaking English in front of the class. This meant most participants feel anxious and feel nervous during speaking activities in front of the class. Next is 6 students show low anxiety. Meanwhile, only 6 students show low anxiety. So, high anxiety was much more common among students in the class. For the anxiety signs, the first is fidgeting. One of the common signs is anxiety. Students get moving their hand, their feet, and their body because they felt nervous when speaking English in front of the class. Next is nervous laughter. Some students laugh nervously to hide their anxiety with uncomfortable mood. Next is reading. Another sign is reading. Students commonly do physical signs like sweating where they ask to speak English in front of the class. Next is freezing up. Some students suddenly become silent and forgot what they wanted to say when they had anxiety. Next is distortion of sound. The researchers also found the distortion of sound. Students had difficulty producing correct pronunciations and intonation in English. So, the next is main anxiety factors. The first is communication apprehension. The first major anxiety factor is communication apprehensions. There is anxiety when the students are afraid of getting bad scores. And next is fear of negative evaluation by the teacher or by the classmates. Okay, we move to discussion. The first point is communication apprehension. The point is lack of vocabulary and grammar. The discussions explain that students' lack of vocabulary and grammar knowledge. Because of this, students being afraid in speaking English. Next is mispronunciation. Students also worried by their pronunciation. They are afraid their classmates cannot understand what they're saying. Next is nervousness and shyness. And so many students become nervous and shy during speaking activity in the class. Some students even avoided to speak in front of the class. For test anxiety, the first is fear of speaking without preparation. The next is trembling and sweating during performance. For the fear of negative evaluation, the first is fear of criticism from teacher and peers, and fear of making a mistake. The last is fear of being laughed. Some students worried about their mistakes. Because of this, they lose their concentrations and lose confidence while speaking. And also, this article explains that the negative reactions from peers, such as being laughed, also affects students' performance. Next, we move to impacts of anxiety. The first is psychological effects is shyness, confusion, irritability, and lack of concentration. And next is physical effects like sweating, trembling, heart pounding, stammering. And for the learning effects is less participation, students become passive students, and students become difficulty in speaking English, and in the end, they with low speaking performance. For the conclusions, anxiety strongly affects the overall speaking performance. They affect negatively, they can affect with physical signs, and most students experience high anxiety. That three major anxiety factors were found is communication apprehension, test anxiety, fear of negative evaluations, and in the end, anxiety creates psychological and physical effects like sweating and trembling. However, teachers should create a supportive classroom, so students will be comfortable in speaking English in front of the class. So these are some references in the article, and in the end, maybe that's all for me. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alright, That's all for today's seminar. Thank you for our speakers, M.Haafizh Kurniawan, and thank you for the audience to participants and attention. Okay, see you next time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.